Thank you. Did you bring for yourself?
Dr. Oyinwola. Yeah. Yes, I mute everybody. You can hear me. If you hear me, raise your hand. If you hear, okay, yeah, you can hear. Okay, that's good. So, Dr. Okafo, well done. Bobo, well done, yeah. Yeah. Yes, I just muted everybody, but later I will unmute everybody so that so far you can hear me. That's great. So we have 21 people already. 21 people. Okay, Akin Ayokumi. Oh, well done. I think in a few minutes, I will start this 8 minutes after 1. We quickly make the presentation. Should not take up to 1 hour so that we can have time for questions. Today we'll be looking at the descriptive statistics. You know, last week we talked about the basic concepts of statistics, and there where we discussed the relationship between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. We say that there's a link between them, which is the probability. Today we will quickly look at the descriptive statistics. We will not be able to finish descriptive statistics today. Maybe by Thursday we'll finish it. But at least today and Thursday, we look at descriptive statistics before we move to probability. Let me put it in presentation mode. Yeah. So you can see this maxim. Statistics and management are two faces of the same coin, which is evidence-based decision. Coin is evidence-based decision. Statistics provide the evidence while management makes the decision. So without statistics, you cannot have evidence to make decision. So that's the relationship between statistics and management. The first thing you want to understand about descriptive statistics is the concept or a concept of distribution. You know, we said the last time when we talked about basic concepts, we said that all the processes involved in collecting data up to summarization constitute descriptive statistics. Up to summarization. And what you summarize, what you get is statistics as per either mean, mode, median, or percentage. That's summarization of your data set. You summarize to get statistics. And from these statistics, you make projection, you make inference, you make judgment about what parameter might be in the population. So now, the first thing, after collecting your data, what do? Is to look at the distribution of the data. So when you have your data set, what does it mean? Distribution means patterns observed in a collection of value for a variable. For example, if, for example, you collect data on height, so for maybe for 100 or 200 people, what is the pattern? How many have a particular value? That's the meaning of pattern of occurrence. Okay, let's give simpler example. Maybe you want to collect data on ethnicity. Of course, when you are collecting data, most of the time you don't collect data on one variable. You collect data on a lot of variables. Of course, you have your variable of interest. That your variable of interest may be nutritional status. But of course, there are other variables you collect. Maybe you want to look at the relationship between those variables and the variable of interest, especially demographic variable. Whichever way, all of them, they are variables on their own. Now, if you have collected data, let's say for ethnicity, pattern of occurrence, distribution just means out of 400 people you have collected data from, how many are Hausa, how many are Igbo, how many are Yoruba, how many are Shekiri, how many are any other group. That is the pattern of occurrence. If it is weight, you have collected, you have measured weight. You want to know how is the value, how many of them have this particular value. But the way we summarize or we look at distribution of quantitative variable differ somehow from qualitative variable. We're going to talk about that now. Now, this distribution, which is the pattern of occurrence of variable in a data set, there are 4 types of distribution. 4 types. Let me use the annotation, the spotlight. The first one is frequency distribution. The second one, relative frequency, cumulative frequency, cumulative relative frequency. All this. Okay, let's look at the description of each of them. If you look at this table, the table you have here is a data set about parity of 50 women. For some of us that are not medical people, parity means number of times somebody has given birth, have carried pregnancy to delivery, to term. Parity. So if you look at it now, we have from the value of the parity, some may not, it's possible somebody has not carried pregnancy to term. It's possible somebody has carried pregnancy to term once. It's possible twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So we have up to 5 times here. And from these 50 people, you can look at how many of them have 0. That is, have not carried pregnancy up to term, 15. How many of them have 1, 11, 2, 8, 3, 6, 5, 4, 5, and 5, 5. The total is 50. The number you can see, this frequency distribution, that first column after the parity, the blue column, shows the value of variable, a variable can take and the number of all record with each value. That is the number recorded in each value. So frequency actually tell you how many of them. That's the frequency distribution. Out of 50, how many are para 1? How many are para 0? How many? That is, when you add everything, it should be equal to your sample size, the total number of observation. That is frequency distribution. Of course, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make much sense because there's no standardization. If another person carry out this work now, the person can have, instead of 50 people, can have 200. How do you compare? How do you compare? That is, how do you reference? How do you reference that one? How do you compare with your own? So you cannot say if in 200, out of 200, about maybe 21 have para 1 and your own is 11. How do you compare 21 and 11? That is why the next one is relative frequency. What relative frequency does is to standardize so that it will be easy for comparison. So in relative frequency distribution now, instead of you to look at the number, the absolute number, you look relative, you look at the number relative to the total. That is out of 50, 15 are para 0. That would be 15 over 50. You cannot express as percentage. You can express as decimal. You express as decimal to be 0.3. But it makes sense to express as percentage. When you multiply 0.3 by 100, it gives you 30. So it's telling you 30%. So 30% are para zero. It makes more sense. If another person carry out another study, even if the sample size is 400, so far the person also express his own in percentage, you'll be able to compare your own with that person. So, when your own is 30, irrespective of the sample size, you compare, what they did is 32, almost the same, or 31. That is essence of the relative frequency. And we are using most of the, when we tabulate our result, that's what we do. We use the relative frequency. We use both the frequency and relative frequency. You put the frequency there, you put it over 100%. That percentage is relative frequency. Now, we still have two types. Apart from these two we just discussed, we still have two types of frequencies. Yeah. We have the cumulative frequency. Well, I don't know why they didn't call it accumulative. It was just to accumulate. What it does mean, it means that look at this one now. 50 half para 0, 50 half para 0. Then 11 half para 1. If you look at in cumulative frequency, you start with the, depending on the which direction. Most of the time, we start with the lowest, 0, 15 half 0. Then instead of saying 11 half 1, we now have the 11 to 15. When you add 11 to 15, it gives you 26. So at that level, what it's just telling you is that at least people that have at least one and below, that's why it's telling you 26 of them. Then if you now come to 2, you now add the 16 to 26, it gives you 34. 8 to 26, it gives you 34. Then for 3, you add the 6 to 34, it gives you 40. For 4, you add 5 to 40, it gives you 45, and so on until you reach the last one. So the last one would be the total sample size. So you are accumulating it so that you'll be able to say, if I want to say, what's the probability, or how many people have at least para 2? You know, it's 34. That is 2, at least para 2 means para 2, para 1, para 0. So can you see the essence of cumulative frequency now? Now, the same way you cannot compare, because cumulative frequency is using absolute number. So for you to standardize, just like when you standardize frequency with relative frequency, you now standardize cumulative frequency with cumulative relative frequency. It's just the same. So you express as percentage, that's the last column. So we can now see the 4 different type of distribution we use. Now, how do you, if you look at now, by the time you collect your data, the distribution is for you to know how are they, what's the pattern. From here now, you can see from what we just discussed, you can see that, this is the pattern. 30% are para 0, 22% are para 1, 16% are para 2, 12% are para 3, 10% are para 4, and para 5, respectively. That is the pattern. This one, if you look at this quantitative variable, we have, though this is the simplest form we can have. Even this is the same thing with qualitative. Even if it is ethnicity you are showing here, how many out of the 50, how many are Igbos? How many are Yorubas? How many are Hausa? How many are Kanuri? How many are Ishekiri or others? Put them there. I express a percentage in the table like that. That's the frequency table. It gives you, the person that just see the pattern of occurrence of the value, because the values of the variable, we have already said before, is data. The values of the variable data. So you want to know out of this, how many have, like sex now, out of 50 people, how many have are female, how many are male? In this class now, you're either a male or a female. How many are male, how many are female? That's the pattern of occurrence. That's the distribution of the sex in the class. So either you are using it for qualitative, quantitative, ordinal, whatever, is the same concept. It's only that the way you present it may differ, as you're going to see. Now, how do you, after you have look at distribution, how do you even display the distribution? How do we display it? You can see, of course, it's very simple. The one we just did now, we use table, frequency table. So two methods. The first one is tabular format, tabular form, which is the frequency table we just showed now. We also use graphical form. You can display distribution in graph. You give the pattern in graph. You know, most of the time when you are dealing with maybe politicians or some development work, people, because the people that are funding the work, they have the money, they may not understand number, like, you know, they may not have, you may not be able to interpret table. You put it in graph, and some simple graph, they can, oh, this one is higher, it's taller. It's just simple as that. So graphical format is another way. Instead of presenting distribution in table, you use graphical format. Now the graphical format now differ. There are different types. We have the one under. If you look at this arrow now, you see the example under the graphical. The first one, pie chart, bar chart. These are for district data. District data. If you remember last week, yes, when we talked about descriptive statistics, we talked about classification of variables. We said the variable can be classified based on the type of value you give, quantitative or qualitative. Under the qualitative, we have nominal, ordinal. Under the quantitative, we have the discrete and continuous. And I remember I said there is another alternative classification where you can even divide a variable into discrete and continuous. We now say that because those ordinal and nominal, which is categorical, they are also discrete. Discrete doesn't mean that there is a defined group, definite group that are defined. No, they are defined. It's something that there's no overlap. So you already know that if something is nominal, if there are like ethnicity, just say Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba. Even if we have up to 200 in Nigeria, we can mark the other and say others. So it shows that there are 4 categories you have decided. So there are 4 categories. It's not like that for continuous. Even when we talk about discrete, we say that is a form of numerical variable, but it's counted. Is this in the sense that you can have limited number of values between 2 given values? Number of children, 2, 1, between 2 and 5, you have 3, 4. Unlike blood sugar, where you can have 60.11, 60.12. So the continuous variable is no sharp boundary, whereas discrete variable and all those ordinal categorical variable that are sharp boundary. That's why some people classify them as discrete also. So you can actually say categorical variable plus discrete numerical, yeah, discrete variable. Why I'm bringing this issue here is that you can only use pie chart and bar chart for that type of variable. You can use pie chart, bar chart to ethnicity, number of children, all this discrete, even if it's numerical, but since it's number is counted, or ordinal or whatever, you can use pie chart or bar chart. But you cannot use pie chart or bar chart to display continuous variable. You can only do that when you now categorize it. No, you can categorize continuous variable. Even the blood sugar, but okay, you that have above this, you think this, and even age is a continuous variable, but we categorize a group less than 20, 20 to 29, 30 to 39. So all those, you know, I didn't talk about it last time, that even though you have categorical and continuous variable or numerical variable, you can change numerical variable to categorical by ranging it, by having category, you range it like age range, or by having a cutoff. If you have a cutoff point, you have dichotomized. You are categorizing into 2 categories. Like now, when you say diabetic, they do blood sugar. Anybody that have maybe greater than or equal to 126 milligram per dl, you say this is diabetic. So it has already categorized, dichotomized, that is divided people into 2, diabetic, non-diabetic. So that is what you can do with continuous variable or even numerical variable generally. You can categorize it. By the time you categorize it, about that category is non-numerical itself. It's not continuous itself. It's categorical. So that is the only time you can use pie chart or bar chart for them if you categorize them. But without categorizing them the way they are, you cannot use the type of graph we do for continuous variable are histogram, stem and leaf plot, bus and whisker, frequency polygon, cumulative frequency polygon, the one they call OG's graph. Okay, let's see. Let's quickly look at each of them. Look at pie chart. Look at this example. This data is from diabetics. We want to see how many have complication. 194 have complication, which is 48.5, and did not have complication rather. While 206, 51.5% have complication. It's showing in pie chart, here. Pie, as you know, is like a pie. You know, the angle is like it's a circle, and the angle of a circle is 360. So something, why is it, if you look at, I put something here, appropriate for mutually exclusive variable, even though you use it for discrete variable, but it's only appropriate for mutually exclusive. What is the meaning of mutually exclusive? Mutually exclusive means when one person or one subject, if he belongs to one category, cannot belong to the other category. Like for sex now, if you do your study, if you say somebody is a male, it cannot be a female. Even some people now say hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite is another category. If you have a male, female, hermaphrodite, no problem. But if somebody is male, you will not put the person as hermaphrodite. If the person is hermaphrodite, you will not say the person is a female or male. Whichever way, there are discrete categories and you cannot belong to both. That's what they call mutually exclusive. You cannot belong to one of them, more than one. Let's say like ethnicity. You either, if you are doing your research, somebody is either Igbo. Even if you say that your mother is Igbo, your father is Igbo, you have to choose one. You have to choose one. You cannot say a person that has duals. You choose in your study. You choose one. That is a form of mutually exclusive. Then you now move to, let's move to pie chart, bar chart rather. This bar chart is appropriate for both mutually exclusive and independent variable. So you got to, what's this meaning difference between mutually exclusive and independent? Okay, in independent, one person or a subject can belong to multiple categories. You yourself, you do it in your research now. Maybe when you are asking questions, you say, tick as many as possible. A particular question, question 1 or question 10, tick as many as possible. Maybe you are asking question, if the child has these symptoms, did your child have these symptoms? Diarrhea, vomiting, weight loss, cough, fever. You listen. For the child, for the father, a child has fever, does not preclude the child from having diarrhea. So a child can have all of them. You can have 3 of them. You can have 1 of them. So in that case, when you are collecting your data, that type of variable, you take as many as possible. In that case, that variable symptom is not mutually exclusive. It's independent because if you are in category of fever, you can still belong to the category of diarrhea. So in that case now, if you remember the mutually exclusive, when you add them together, it will be 100%. It cannot be more than the total. The response you get cannot be more than the total sample size. But for the mutual, for the independent, like for these symptoms now, in a situation where somebody tick about 4, 5, some people tick 2. If you now had all of them, they are all symptoms now. If your sample size is 200, by the time you had it, you may have 1,200 or 1,500 responses there, because some of them tick as many as possible. So in that situation, you don't treat the whole thing as a variable. You now teach each of the response as a variable because they are independent. That's the difference. So if you look at it, the bar chart, the pie chart rather, the one that is circle, you cannot have more than 360 degrees in the circle. So you can only use it for mutually exclusive because you can only accumulate all to the total. Whereas for, if you want to use for independent, you cannot. It will cause problem. It's not even possible. So when we get to probability also, you go to look at Boolean logic. It works the same way. Now, bar chart overcome that problem in the sense that you can use it for mutually exclusive, also use for independent. All you need to do is to plot for each of the variables, plot their own graph, each of them over 100%. Look at this example now. This one is the treatment for diabetes. There are three treatment modalities here. Diet combined with exercise, oral hypoglycemic agent, then insulin. So it's, if you look at it now, the diet 39%, diet plus exercise 39%, oral hypoglycemic agent 81%, insulin 30.8%. If you add both of them, all of them together, it's more than 100. It's because they are independent. In the sense that if somebody is on diet and exercise, does not preclude the person from being on oral hypoglycemic agent. It doesn't preclude the person from being on insulin. So you can be on 2 or even 3 of them. You can be on 1 of them. The person can be on 2 of them, can be on 3 of them. So in that case, when you add all the responses together, it will be more than 100%. So when you are plotting now, you plot it. When you see this type of graph, you see that once you see, you know that they are independent, because when you add everything together, it will be more than 100%. Whereas if you go and add the pie chart together, it cannot be more than 100%. So you can also use, you can still use the bar chart for mutually exclusive. Yes or no? Have you heard of this? Yes or no? Awareness. You can plot it. That shows that the only thing is that yes, if yes is 30%, the no will be 70%. Unless if you know, well, yes, it should be added together. You can still plot it as bar chart. You can plot it as pie chart. You can see now, bar chart you can use for both mutually exclusive and independent variable. I think we move forward. Now, bar chart and pie chart we have already said is for discrete variable. Whereas continuous variable now, when I say discrete in this sense, I'm talking of the alternative classification where we talk about nominal, ordinal, and discrete numerical. Those are the discrete. Why continuous variable, the one that has decimal, histogram. You see the difference between bar chart and histogram is that in bar chart there are spaces between the bar, but this one there are no space because there's no space per se. Because you cannot say somebody 70, 80 and 70. You know, between 80 and 70, we have 10 values, even more than 10 values because decimal is there. So that is why they are side by side, piled up together. And about the shape of the distribution, we'll talk about that later. When we talk about probability, normal distribution, we'll talk about the shape. But there's something I want you to see. Look at stem and leaf plot. Stem and leaf plot. All these other one, histogram, stem and leaf, and all that thing I'm going to show you here, they are for continuous variable. But you can see the same pattern. If you look at it, you see that stem and leaf plot and the histogram, they look the same. It's only the stem and leaf plot. If you look at the shape, normally, almost normally distributed, it goes up and comes down. The same thing with stem and leaf. It's only that it's tilted sideways. It's by the side. It's the same. If you look at this, if you look at this graph and the other graph, you're going to see this box and whisker. I plotted it from the same data. It's from Express directly, from the same data set. It's the weight of some women that attended antenatal in Ibadan. So if you look at it, you will see that the shape of the histogram is the same thing as the stem and leaf. I will tell you that stem and leaf give more information than the histogram. How does it give more information? Because it's the same data set. But if I publish histogram now in journal, people will not be able to have access. They just see the shape. They cannot have access to the data. But the stem and leaf, you can get access to if you have the data in front of you, you can put it in computer and rerun it to even see if I'm telling the truth or not. So let me tell you, the way stem and leaf is stem and leaf. Now, the stem would be the first set of digits. Actually, the leaf is the last digit. The leaf is usually the last digit. Because this data set is about weight. and nobody had above up to 100. So they are all 2 digits. If let's say something like hash that we express in meter 1.67, 3 digits, the last digit will be the leaf. The first 2 digits will be the stem. But in this case now, there are only 2 digits. The last digit is the leaf. The first digit is the stem. The second digit, which is the last one, is the leaf. Look at it. Look at, you will see this under this frequency, we see after the frequency, you see this one, 5, 6, 7. That is the stem. The leaf, 7, you see 7, 9. What is to tell you? If you look at the frequency 2, the first one here, it's telling you 57 and 59. There are 2 in that set, 57 and 59. This one, there are 7 here, 60, 60, 60, 62, 62, 63, 63. There are 7 of them. This one, there are 9 of them, 65, 66, 67, 67, 68, 68, 68, 68, 69, and so on like that. That is the way it works. So the computer will just arrange it like that. In those days where you use hand, you be sweating to do it, but now the computer will just do it for you. But just for you to understand the logic. So if I'm to write the data out now, all you need to do is, okay, 750, 750. I'll just list all of them together and list them out. What's the total? I know I can now enter into computer and run the analysis. You can do it yourself. If you have the something, you can just enter into the computer and run it. You get the same result because it's the same data. That is why stem and leaf give more information than the histogram. Now, let's look at box and whisker. Box and whisker, what it just shows is that it shows the distribution. The middle is the median. We'll talk about that later. You know, there are a lot of things that we just make mention of. You know, we are just trying to show you the type of the graphical. I'm just trying to present the graphical presentation of distribution, displaying of distribution. But you get to understand most of this graph when we get down to the summarization itself. You understand, get to understand a lot of them. Like for this one, I will not talk much about this one. Just know that later we'll talk about it. You know that the middle line is the median. So I'm not talking about median now. The upper line is the 75 percentile, the 75th percent. The lower one is the 25th%. This, the whisker, the upper one tell you the last, the highest value. Why this lower one tell you the lowest value? That's all. Now let's look at frequency polygon. You see in this graph, you see histogram and polygon. It's just a matter of choice. It's the same thing. You know, instead of, if you look at it, the middle point of each of the bar of the histogram, if you join it together, you plot, instead of plotting this on, plotting the boxes, you just join them together. That is the polygon, frequency polygon. Of course, it still gives you the shape also. It will give you the shape. That's just the difference between polygon and histogram. Now, if you now come to cumulative frequency polygon, if you remember, when we talk about frequency and cumulative frequency, the difference between frequency and cumulative frequency is frequency is the number in each category, while cumulative frequency is when you've arranged it in ascending order or descending order. The whole number in the first category, you begin to add the other one, begin to add. So the next category will be the addition of that category and the previous one. The next category will be the number in that category and the previous one. So in that case, it will not go down, it will go up. And that is what gives us the ogive graph. If you plot the middle point of that, and then you just, instead of plotting like a frequency polygon for each class, when it reaches you begin to add. As you are adding, it will be going up. It now gives this type of graph. That's what we call ogive graph, cumulative frequency polygon. All of them, they are for quantitative, for continuous variable. All the histogram, stem and leaf, box and whisker, frequency polygon, cumulative frequency polygon, they are continuous variable. You just know by the time we start looking at each of them, somehow, I'm going to meet each of them. I'll be able to explain the interpretation better. Now, let's quickly look at the summarization of data. Now we have looked at the concept of distribution now. Then we also look at how do you now display distribution with tabular or graphical format. Then how do we summarize? You know that that is the end where the descriptive statistics end, summarization. You know, the descriptive statistics from collection of data to your organizing until you summarize. That is descriptive statistics. Now, the summarization, what I mean by summarization is, imagine if you have gone to this field to take sample of 400 in the city, you cannot come and begin to read the result. Oh, Mrs. Benkasi, this is the weight, this is the hemoglobin concentration, this is the blood pressure. Is that what you're going to be doing? You cannot do that. You have to answer, okay, instead of listing the name, we have 400 people. You just give us a value, okay, the weight, the average weight is this. The range is this. This is a percentage that from South-South. This is a percentage that are working in the bank. All those, that's summarization. Now, summarizing data set, the way you summarize depends on the type of the data you're dealing with. So in your study now, you're going to have different type of data. So the way you summarize each of them depends on the type of data set, the type of variable you're dealing with. You know, one thing about data and variable is that data are values of variable. The same classification that goes for variable goes for data. Now, summarizing data, qualitative data, quantitative data. We are going to stop at summarizing today qualitative data so that I can give room for questions. So I will explain summarizing qualitative data. By Thursday, we now finish with, we have a lot here. We now finish with summarizing quantitative data. That will be the end of descriptive statistics. Now, how do we summarize qualitative data? You remember qualitative data when we talk about concept, basic concept the other time. They are not data you give. They don't have numerical value. They are quality, like sex, like your liking scale, or the type of treatment you receive, the word, your political zone, the skin color, whatever, the food you eat in the afternoon, your lunch, the type of your best food, whichever way. All these things, they are categorical and they say that intrinsically they don't have number. If you give number, you say somebody you code, you can code. When you say like I say, strongly agree, you say 5, agree 4, undecided 3, disagree 2, strongly disagree 1. That you just coding, you just gave the arbitrary value. That's not their value. The value is what they are, is what we just said, agree, strongly disagree. That's their value. So the other 1, 2, 3 is the coding. So the category, so what categorical variable end up doing is to now categorize, that is, okay, out of these 5 categories, strongly agree, how many are strongly agree? How many are agree? How many are undecided? You now put it percentage. But it's not as simple as that. You need to understand some concept. We now go back to the ratio. What do you understand by ratio? If you look at it, you summarize qualitative data using ratio. What does ratio mean? You know, when we're looking at scale of measurement, we talk about ratio scale, but I didn't want to talk extensively about that ratio because there are many things to talk about by that time. If you remember physics, ratio is anything you get when you divide 2 quantities of the same unit. 2 quantities of the same unit. That is, for example, now, if you divide 400 kilometers by 4 hours, it gives you 4 kilometers per hour. 400 kilometers is distance. Hour is time. They are different quantities. They have different units. So that one is not a ratio. 4 kilometers per hour is not a ratio. Or 100 kilometers per hour is not a ratio. But if you divide 400 kilometers by 100 kilometers, both of them are distance. They have the same unit. You will not say, the answer is 4 kilometers. No, because the kilometer, if you divide the kilometer as cancel kilometer, it becomes 4. That's ratio. When you divide two things of the same quantity of the same unit, it gives you ratio. It doesn't have unit. That's why it's dimensionless, it's unitless. It doesn't have unit. That is ratio for you. So that is why it's very simple. In statistics, what are you dividing? You are dividing number of person by number of person. Imagine now, you say in your study of 400 people, you have 250 male and 150 female. You say, what is the male-female ratio? Or let's say 300 of them, 200 male, 100 female. Male-female ratio is so 2 to 1. The reason is very simple. Number of male is human being. All over number of female is human being. When you divide the two of them, it gives you 2 divided by 1, it gives you 2. So you not say 2 male or 2 male female or whatever. That is the logic. Even if it is animal you are dealing with in your statistics or even number of facility or number of building. Number of 300 building in Nasarawa divided by 100 building in Borno is 300 divided by 100. Those are building is whatever you get is ratio. Is ratio, that is, it's telling you that Nasarawa is 3 times than Borno, just 3 to 1. That is the logic behind it. So in categorical variable, what you do is to try to divide each of the category to divide them. That's the way to summarize them. Like for example, if you remember the frequency table we look at under distribution, frequency distribution, or whatever, relative frequency. What do we do? Relative. You divide each category by the total. It gives you the percentage. That's the way to summarize. If you look at that table, it was a summary on its own. We have already summarized it there to a certain extent. For each category, for each parity, we can give you the percentage. We have summarized it. And what did you use this ratio? So now there are different types of ratio. Now, the first question, if you look at the first question, is that ratio is numerator included in the denominator. If it is no, you leave it as ratio, like it's still ratio. But there are some special form of ratio. Like for example, if the numerator is included in denominator, is proportion. Let me give an example now. We say in our class here, we have, let's say in this class, we have 50 people attending the class. Out of the 50 people, we have 30 male and 20 female. The number of, what is the, if you want to say male-female ratio, we say 3/2, 3 to 2. Now, then what is the proportion of female? That is how do you summarize the female? Okay, the female, 20 out of 50. 20 divided by 50. 20 female. That 50 is female not there. Females are there now because that 50 is made up of female, 20 female, and 30 male. So in that case, the denominator itself, even the females are still there. So the numerator is included in the denominator. That is proportion. So most of the time, the commonest way of summarizing qualitative data is proportion. This proportion. Numerators is included in denominator. Is proportion. Now, Most of the time, when it says the proportion, when you do it, of course, if the total is denominator and numerator is smaller, it will, by the time you divide, it will be 0 point something. So that will be decimal, fraction. So many people wonder, okay, the fraction per se is 20 over 50, which is 2 over 5. The decimal is when you say 0 point something, 0 0.2, 0 0.4 or whatever. Now, many people may not be able to conceptualize. That's why you express as percentage. Instead of saying 0 point something, if you are talking to maybe politicians or people that know the decision makers, sometimes they may not be able to think fast the way you are thinking. You say 0.4. What does 0 point? You are telling, imagine you are saying something to your governor. You say 0.4. People say 0.4. What the proportion is 0.4. You just, if you say 40%, yes, is it 40? Is it 40%? You are saying yes, it's 40%. So if you multiply by 100, you express as percentage. So proportion is either expressed as fraction, decimal, or in percentage. But the commonest, the easiest way is to express as percentage. But sometimes you can use other denominators like infant mortality. You know that because we don't expect that value to be high. So when we are talking about maybe 200 out of 1,000, 220 out of 1,000, if you see expressed as percentage, it will still give you decimal. That's why they say, okay, 75 per 1,000. Maternal mortality, 17 per 100,000. Because if you go and express as percentage, you see as 0.000 something. So when the denominator is very large, you can now say, okay, you may not use percentage. And when the denominator is very large, compare with the value you are the numerator. You can use, okay, per 1,000, per 100. But most of the time, the commonest way is percentage. Now, the last one here is rate. Even that proportion, if the denominator is not included, that one also is a proportion, but if the denominator is not included, oh, sorry, we have already talked about it. Sorry, we already talked about the denominator. Is time included? If the time is not included, you leave it, it's still a proportion, but if the time is included, it's rate. So, ratio now, the summary of it is that ratio, if the denominator is not included, you leave it as ratio. When the denominator is included in the numerator, is proportion. A special form of proportion is when time is involved, is rate. Like for example, most of the time, when we do the infant mortality, neonatal mortality rate, because we measure it over 1 year, because we collect the data over 1 year, it's something that happened over 1 year. That is, time is included. That is why it is rate. But it's still the same thing as the proportion, but because of that time factor that is there. It's not something you go. Imagine now, if you want to go and do your study, you just go to the community, you measure your this and everything. That is proportion because it's just point. That's what they call point privilege, just at point. But if it's something that you collect over some time, is whatever you are doing is rate because time is included. So you see, a special form of ratio is proportion. A special form of proportion is rate. Look at the example given here: maternal mortality ratio. Maternal mortality ratio, the numerator is not included in the denominator. The numerator here is death among women. The denominator is live births, that is children that came alive. Children, the numerator is women, are women. The denominator are children, they are not the same. So the numerator, they are not part of that denominator. That is why it's leave it as ratio. Then for maternal mortality rate, if it is rate, because maternal mortality rate now, the numerator is the number of dead women that die. The denominator is still number of women in the reproductive age group. The total number of women, and those people that die, they are part of them also. They are in that category, and that is why it is rate. That's why maternal mortality ratio differs from maternal mortality rate. The one we usually use for index of maternal death is the ratio, because it makes more sense
Okay. If I know, let me see.
I think let me if you can unmute yourself. Let me see if I can unmute you so that we can go for question now. Let me stop the. I want to stop here. Whether it's summarization.
You always leave this. You don't leave it.
Yes. We have 50 participants, but many people are hiding themselves. That's great. So if you have your question, let me see. I don't know if in our chat if we have put your
Mama.
We'll get the slide.
What is it, Mama?
Yeah, somebody said multiple responses can be captured using Bichat. Yes, that's what we say. You cannot capture multiple responses with Bichat. You can use Bichat. Okay. Then greetings to everyone. Okay. I can't hear. Thank you, sir. Please. Okay. I don't know if anybody has question. This is 158. Any question? You can unmute yourself and just one by one. So it's very simple. It's very straightforward. Yes, if you have question, you can ask a question. Okay, go on, sir. You can unmute yourself. Okay, let me. You are not on. You are okay. You can ask your question, sir. Okay. Yeah. Okay, if that's the case.
How? Hello?
Okay, go on. Go on.
We get slides.
Yeah. Where are we? Maybe I will send it. That will be next by Thursday.
Okay.
Because we have not completed it. We have not completed the. Because we have not actually. Yes, by Thursday I will share the slide by Thursday. Okay. Because this session now we cannot complete it in a day. So if I continue talking now in another 1 hour, we will not even finish the other aspect. But by that time, maybe interest from gone down. So by Thursday we'll finish. We continue from where we stop. We just talk about, because we have a lot under that one. We talk about the summarizing quantitative data. That's what we talk about, the mean, standard deviation, all those variance, measure of distribution shape, all those things. So somebody ask question.
All right. Hello. Thank you.
Go on. Go on.
Hello. Okay.
I can hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Dolapo, for this wonderful session.
Yeah.
We have been in your sessions before, so we know what you can deliver.
Thank you.
Try to gather some of the residents to be part of this meeting.
Okay.
And, so actually, just one question
okay.
for data presentation.
Okay.
The use of the BOSC and Whisker plot for data presentation.
Okay.
But definitely it falls under the category of the kind of this thing used for continuous variables, to present data for continuous variables.
Yes.
All right, of course, looking at the description of the BOSC and Whisker, you have the median or the interquartile range and
the lowest, the minimum, yes, okay.
And the maximum.
Yeah.
So I want to find out, when you want to use this, does it have to do with a data being normally distributed or not? Can it be used both for normal distribution and data that is not normally distributed? I just want to just clarification.
In fact, all those things, you will soon get to know that more than even you, if you look at it, you hardly even see, well, on few occasions, most of the time people present with bar chart, pie chart to present categorical. When it comes to quantitative, even when they have done this, they hardly present because they most of the time use to data is normally distributed. The data says it's normally distributed or not. So what you can able when you plot, you'll be able to know if it's normally distributed or not. Okay. Like the median, that median you see there. Okay, maybe I should go there. Let me just.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see it, right?
Yeah.
That middle line, that's the median. If you look at the upper, so in the 75%, the distance between that one and the median is more than the distance between the median and the 25%. Can you see?
Okay.
It shows that it's slightly skewed. Because if it is not skewed, if it's not normal, if it's actually normal distributed perfectly, that line will be in the middle of the box. So the other two sides will be equal. The ones tilted to one side, it shows that it's skewed. So you can actually use it to even find out if it's normally distributed or not.
Okay.
Yes. So that's just the beauty of it. Just like the way you use the stem and the histogram to know if something is normally distributed. But we talk about it later because apart from this is just a pictorial form. There are statistics we use to know if something is normally distributed or not. Most of the time, it may not be enough to look at it. You may want to see there are some statistics you use to know if something is normally distributed or not. We'll talk about it later.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Let me. Some people were asking some question in the chat.
Okay.
So please mute your microphone if you are not going to ask question. Ask me question because okay, go on.
Okay. So
people are talking like if you are not talking to me, please mute your microphone. If you are not talking to me, if you are talking at home, mute your microphone. But if you want to talk to me, you can unmute and ask your question. Any other one?
Hello, thank you, Dr. Duru.
Okay, go on. Thank you.
I actually sent my message. I was saying that can qualitative results be presented in charts?
Qualitative results?
Yes, sir.
Yes, but where you can, because even in qualitative results, if you can bring something quantitatively out. You know, sometimes when people interview people, they do some in-depth interview. They say that they still want to know, okay, out of 27 or 30 people they interview, if concerning a particular opinion, this is what they said. 30% of them said it. If you can establish that, you can do that. Apart from that, you may not use all these charts, even in qualitative results, which I do. You can draw something that is different from this. You know, if you know, there are some, I just finished analyzing qualitative for some people. You know, you want to, because sometimes the qualitative is too wordy. If nowadays, now, if you don't put in something that make it charming, people wouldn't like to read it. So it's not that I will be plotting bar chart, pie chart. If I have to plot pie chart or bar chart, I must be able to establish the quantitative aspect, just like what I told you. How I was able to establish that, because you can bring quantitative result out of qualitative. If you can do that, you can present. But otherwise, the other way of showing, you can just know these parameter, many things you can use to all those insert image. You can use to present your results in qualitative, just to make it to show the opinion. Just opinion. You know, when you just put something like all these insert insert smart object and that show you parameter hierarchy, process, all those things. You can put the result there in a pictorial form just to make it clean. But you are not going to use pie chart or bar chart or histogram. But of course, the bar chart and pie chart you can use if you are able to establish some, you can bring some quantitative data out of it, which you, many times some people they still have for the age. They ask for the age of people they interview quantitatively. They ask for the age. And at the end of the day, if you have for the, you can present it.
Okay,
but of course, that type
you.
of page, you cannot use continuous variable because the volume, the number of people will not be much. That type of page, you can present with pie chart or bar chart if you want to do that.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Thank
welcome. Welcome. Somebody asked, which is more important to us? Which is more, you say, which is more important to us in epidemiology? You mentioned, but I miss rate or ratio. Why? Okay. Somebody asked question, which one is more important to us in epidemiology? Well, I said that it appears that rates, they use rate more. But the issue, all of them are ratio. Yes, I mean, all of them are ratio. But the proportion is a special form of ratio. While rate is a special form of proportion. But people use that proportion more. And because in epidemiology, you usually look at things over time, the rate, you use rate more. But the same thing, the issue that the rate and proportion is the same thing. There's no special calculation, it's the same calculation. It's only that this rate is over time. That's why you call it rate. If somebody that go to the field now that just collect data and do percentage, that is just a proportion. They call it point prevalent. But if it's something it's not just once, you are collecting it over 6 months or 1 year, it's become a rate. But it's the same calculation. So it's the same percentage. Any other one? Let me read. For maternal mortality, he said the ratio is more important. In maternal mortality, there are two measures there. There's maternal mortality ratio and there's maternal mortality rate. But people prefer using the ratio because the ratio divide the number of women that die over the number of children that came out live birth. That's why they call it ratio, because the numerator, which is the one number of women that die, they are not part of the children. They are not contained in the denominator. That is why they call it ratio. But the rate, the number of children, women that die over the total number of women in the reproductive age group. So they are part of it. That is why it's rate. But people use ratio more in public health because it's more sensible. It's sensitive or more sensitive. Well, is it sensitive or sensible? Because you are trying to look at for every child that come alive, that come out alive, how many women die in the process of giving birth? A child that you are doing naming for, you are happy that a child is alive. How many women lost their life in the process? You try to bring a baby out life. That is what he's telling you. So it shows a level of development in the effectiveness of the health system. And that's why they use that. So somebody asked question. Nice, okay. So I think those are the questions I can see here on the chat. I think we can close so that we can end the meeting for today. We still have 38 participants. I don't know if anybody has questions.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You have a question?
No, sir, just greeting you.
Okay, thank you. See me.
See you Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
I think some.
Why do we get the link for Thursday?
No, it's actually the same link, Seth. The same, if you the same time
message.
Because I don't change the. I use my own something. Even if you didn't even receive the something, the link.
Okay.
The same ID and the same password, the same time I use. The same time, 1 o'clock. But I will still send it out.
Sir.
I will still send it out. So we continue now. Hand the.
Okay, sir.
Hello, Duro. Hello, Duro.
I can hear you.
Hello.
I can
Thank
hear
you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
Please, I'm asking if we can have the presentations from day one into our mail so that we can revise.
Okay, I can send it because I was thinking, okay, what I will do is that I can send the Word version of this one to you.
Okay.
By Thursday, you can get the slide.
Okay.
Because the reason being that is continually, I'm still presenting it. I've not finished this presentation now. Because of that, I don't want to go on. Because if I continue, I wouldn't have finished the second part. And before you know, people will be tired. They will have left.
Okay, what from day one?
Okay, I can send it to you. The one the last week on, which I sent. Okay, you were not part of it.
Yes.
You were sent. Okay, are you in the? You are not in the WhatsApp group, right?
No.
Okay. Okay, if I can have your number, I can add you to the WhatsApp. I will send it to you. You can just.
Okay, but I just send my mail through the message now.
Okay, no
but
problem.
I can also add my number.
Okay. Or you can have my number 0806 so that you just text it.
Okay, let me have your number.
Yes, so that you text I will just add your audition. Okay, I've seen it. Is it 0806 92442, right? Is that
No.
Okay. Okay.
Let me have your own, then I will now text my own.
Okay, 0806
0806
892
3215.
Yes. So if you just text me, yes, I will add you. So I will still send it because I sent to the WhatsApp group. Everybody had the presentation.
Okay.
Hello, doctor.
Okay, hold on.
Hello.
Hold on.
Yes.
Hello. Hold on. Hello. Okay, you are the one calling. Okay.
Yes, I'm the one calling. That is my number.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, doctor. Thank you very much.
Okay, go on.
I think somebody is asking a question on the through the message platform. So please, how is continuous data different from quantitative data? That is, I think, from Joseph. Yeah.
Okay, I will answer now. Okay. Continuous. Yeah.
Okay. Finish your discussion. I would like to ask some questions.
Okay. As I said before, the continuous data or the continuous data available, they are just type of quantitative. The umbrella is quantitative because maybe the person was not present in the first presentation of basic concepts when we classify variables and data. If you use we said that the value of variables are data. Data are values of variable. Now, the type of value they assume can be used to classify them. That's what we use to classify into quantitative and categorical. If the value you give, you can give number, is numerical or quantitative. If you cannot give number, it's qualitative, like sex now, you cannot give number. You cannot say that your baby just had a baby, see what is the sex? You not say 1. It doesn't make sense. So you cannot say 1 because it's either male or female. If the value of qualitative is not quantitative, you cannot give number. So anyone you can give number like age, the number of children, like height, like blood sugar. Think of anything you can give number, like income. They are quantitative or numerical. Why the one you cannot give, skin color, ethnicity, sex, word where you belong to, your profession, your state, all those things, they are qualitative. But now, under the numerical, which is quantitative, there are some that are counted, there are some that are measured. The counted one are the one that, for example, number of children. You cannot say you have 1.5 children because it can only come in whole number. It cannot have fraction. That is discrete. Whereas continuous can have fraction, can have point, decimal. As for example, blood sugar. Blood sugar can be 60.22, 60.23, 60.27, we see infinite, even between 60 and 61. Blood sugar, you have infinite number of value in between the two. Whereas when it comes to a number of children, number of people in the class, you can only have in between 1 and 10, you only have about 8 value, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you cannot have half, you cannot have decimal in discrete. So those ones that you can have decimal, they are the one they call continuous. Don't worry, when we talk, all these things will be recurring, because when we talk about probability distribution, we talk about discrete probability distribution, continuous probability distribution, you'll be able to understand better. But just know like that. So there are some of those things we have to give it bit by bit, so that you need to understand first thing first. When you understand first thing first, by the time you get to higher thing, everything just click. Then the person I want to ask the question. Somebody say you wanted to ask question after I finished talking. Somebody say you want to ask question.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the one. Please, you've answered the question, but I would like if you can add me to your WhatsApp group, and then I will send my number to you. I was typing in the.
And just send it now. Just send your number to this chat. So I will, after okay. I will save it and bring the number out. But it's good to put your name. Put your name, because so that I will know how to. Okay, the names are there actually. The names are there. But there are some people they just use they don't have their name.
Okay.
Just
they hide their.
Yes.
Sorry, I will hide my name, and then I will like the previous one presentation, the recorded form.
Yes. What will happen is that don't worry. The recorded form. I don't know today. Yes. Today, so maybe because the one we have done, I didn't like the recording because we had some technical issue. If today so is okay, I'll be able to share it. But what I
can
do,
see on my okay.
Yes, what I do is to give you the slide. I give you the slide. But if the recording is okay, I'll be able to share it. But most of the time, the recording will be very heavy. Okay, welcome.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Any other question? Somebody has, is age continuous or discrete variable? Age is a continuous variable. People think it's discrete because we say we usually round up our age. Say 37, 38. But you actually, the person that says 38, maybe it's 38 last birthday, 38 here, 2 months, 1 week, 3 days, 2 hours. So, but you cannot incorporate all those details. That's why we just round up. So age per se is a continuous variable. But because when we collect our data, we just use last birthday or whatever. We round up the figure. That's why you think it's discrete. It's continuous variable. Then somebody. So I don't think there's any other question. Okay, I'm receiving some. Okay, Dr. Fisayo. Anna.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Tolulope.
Yes, I will continue.
I'm sorry, I joined late. I wasn't there when you explained the frequency table.
That was the beginning. That was the beginning.
I joined shortly after you explained the frequency table.
Okay, so after the frequency table, you were there.
Frequency table is not something that you can rush on.
So at least somebody to let you know that it's not something you can rush.
Yes, but what you said about it, I know I can
Thank you for helping me to let her know that. Okay, yes. This table, right? This is the table, right? Can you see it?
Yes, sir. That's it, sir.
Yes, this table, what frequency actually mean? Distribution. What distribution actually mean is pattern of occurrence of the value of a variable in the data set. That is, when you collect your data, what is how do they appear? You know, when you see the value, we have already known that the value of variable are data. These data, how do they come? That is, for example, now, male, female. We know that sex is a variable. The data are male and female. Now, when you collect your data now, out of 50 people, how many are male, how many are female? That is the distribution. For the ethnicity, how many of them are out of the 50? How many of them are Hausa? How many are Igbo? That is distribution. If it is height or weight or age, how many of them are between this age group? That's the distribution. How many of them weigh between this and how many of them have the high? That is the distribution. That is how the value come. That is the distribution. But there are 4 different types of this distribution. And why we have different types is because of the way they are useful. In the raw form, this is an example of parity of 50 women with ovarian cancer. I don't know if you are a medical person. The meaning of parity is number of times a woman carry pregnancy to term. If somebody carry pregnancy is aborted, it is not counted. But the one that the person carry to term is the parity. So here now we have about 5 parity group here. We have 0, people that have never carried 1 to term. Then 2, we have 1, 2, 3 up to 5 here. Now, out of the 50, from what we have here, we have 15 have 0, 11 1, 8 have 2, 6 have 3, 5 of them have 4, and 5 of them have 5. Everything added up to 50 because there are 50 people in this study. Now, the number in each category of the value that the number of each, or the number of times each value appear in the raw sense is the frequency. How frequent? Even everyday English, how frequent is that value? Like para 0 now, out of 15, it came 15 times, 15 of them. But the limitation, that is frequency distribution. So we have 4 types of frequency distribution on this table. All the 4 types of distribution are shown on this table. Now, the drawback of frequency distribution is you cannot standardize. Like this study now is 50 people. If you go and do your own study, another person did the study in Ghana, and they use 200 people, how do I compare my own with that one? If somebody say, if I say that, 11 of my own have para 1, and the person, the sample size for that person is 200, and that his own is maybe 25 para 1. How do you compare 11 out of 50 and 25 out of 200? How do you compare it? It's difficult unless you standardize, unless you put it as percentage. So if you now put it as percentage, 11 over 50 times 100, which is 22%, and that person put 25 over 200, we'll be able to see if is it the same percentage. That is the relative frequency. That is frequency relative to the total. So how do you calculate the percentage? By putting the frequency of each category over the total multiplied by 100. That is what they call a relative frequency. So relative frequency is for standardization. That is why when you are quoting, that's what they quote in the world. Oh, so a top found out that 20% are para one among the women. No, if they really express it as percentage, how would you will you be saying that we're 200 out of 1,500 per hour? What does that mean? It does not click unless you express a percentage. That is why. So that is the percentage form that make it easy for you to do literature review and compare your work with other work. Now that is relative frequency. Frequency and relative frequency. The next one is cumulative frequency and cumulative relative frequency. Now the difference between frequency and cumulative frequency is very simple. You know, scientists are very intelligent people. Over time, people invented too many things to solve a particular problem or to make life easy. Now, if I want you to tell me now, how many people have at least para 2? Instead of you to be counting now and be saying, oh, at least para 2, you now do the percentage for 2, you do the percentage for 1, because at least para 2 means either 2, 1, or 0. Is that not so? So instead of you to be adding, so in a table, if you arrange it in ascending order, like 0, 1, 2, up to the highest, and if you look at the parity, the frequency of 0 is 15. When you now look at under 1, the frequency is 11. You now add the 11 to 15, you give it 26. For 2, you add the 8 to 26, give it 34. So you'll be able to know that, okay, at least para 2 means 34 of them have at least para 2. That is the essence of the cumulative frequency. You'll be able to know more than at least, at most. You'll be able to answer the question at least, at most. That's the essence of cumulative frequency. And the same thing, cumulative relative frequency means to put the cumulative frequency in percent. That's the essence of it. I think it's very simple.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Well, yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, I think we can close the meeting. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay.